Did you know that you can take Instagram style QR codes, you know, the ones with the little dots, and convert them into vector format right here in Adobe Illustrator? Now there's a secret to making this work, and it revolves around one little checkbox. So here we have our Instagram style QR code, which we were able to download right from our Instagram profile. And what makes it unique from most other QR codes is where we would normally find squares, we instead find these little dots of various sizes, which makes things a little bit more difficult for our vector conversion. But we have a secret weapon to help us get through this. Now I should also note that here I'm using the black and white version of the QR code, which makes our conversion a little bit easier. But if you stick around to the end, I'll show you how to put those vibrant colors back in. So to start, let's go ahead and select our QR code, and then we'll go up here to Object, Image Trace, Make. Not Make and Expand yet, just Make. We're going to need to make a few changes to our settings before we actually expand. Now, since Instagram is nice enough to allow high quality downloads, Illustrator gives us this warning telling us that it may proceed slowly. But it won't be too bad, so we can just go ahead and hit OK. Now you may not notice much of a difference at first, other than things got a little bit off kilter. And if we zoom in, we can see that some of those dots aren't quite circular anymore. They're looking a little lumpy right now, which doesn't look great and could affect our QR code later on. This has to do with the limitations of the image trace feature. It doesn't always do the best with trying to figure out shapes and curves, but we can fix that. So let's go ahead and reset our view, and then we'll go up to Window, Image Trace, to bring up our image trace settings. Now your settings may vary depending on your QR code, but what I've found works the best is bringing the threshold all the way down to 1, paths, setting that at around 30, and then corners, I'll set that down to 0, and then noise, I'll set that down to 1. I also like to go down here and hit this Ignore Color checkbox in order to get rid of the white area in our background. That way we're just keeping the black areas. That gives us some flexibility on how we can modify this later on, and it makes the vector conversion a little bit easier for Illustrator. But even with these settings, if we zoom back in, we can see that things are still looking a bit lumpy. So now it's time for that secret weapon that makes all of this work. All we have to do is go over here to this checkbox labeled Shapes. That tells Illustrator that we want to generate geometric shapes rather than it trying to guess what all of those curves should look like. So if we check that box, immediately you can see that we're no longer getting those weird results. Instead, each of our dots are now perfectly circular, which is exactly what we want. So if we reset our view again, we can see that now it's looking really, really nice. So with that done, we can just hit Expand and then close out of our dialog box. And now we can just appreciate our new vector QR code. But as I promised at the beginning, I'll give you a little bonus tip here at the end. I know some of you may have been disappointed that we used the black and white version. So let's go ahead and bring those vibrant Instagram colors back in. To do that, we just click on our QR code and then go up here to Object, Compound Path, Make, or use the shortcut Control-8 or Command-8 on a Mac. That will help us with our gradient settings, and I have a video showing why that's necessary, which I can link down in the description if you're curious. Then let's go over here and click on our gradient button to add a gradient to our QR code. And then over here in our gradient settings, we can switch that angle to 45 degrees. And then for our first color, we can double click on that. And then we can hit this little menu over here to switch this to RGB. And for our hex code, we'll set that to F10677. And then for our second color, we'll do the same. We'll double click on that. Click on this menu, switch it to RGB. And then for the hex code on this one, we'll set that to 8E2FDF. And then if we deselect everything, we can see that brings us back to that nice default Instagram gradient. Or you can adjust these colors yourself and make them whatever you'd like. Feel free to make it your own. And now that you've learned the secret to creating perfect vector QR codes, do you know just how many cool things you can do using the Blend tool in Adobe Illustrator? I have a video right here to show you all the creative ways you can use this versatile tool.